You ever start a job thinking it's just another way to pay the bills and get by? You show up every night, do the work, and head home tired but okay. That's how I felt when I first started at the Cisco Foods Distribution Center off Shelby Drive in Memphis, Tennessee. But one coworker changed all that. It wasn't anything wild like in movies, just small things that built up slow until I didn't feel right being there anymore. This happened years ago, but I still remember every bit of it. I had been working there about 4 months. It was third shift from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. We loaded pallets full of frozen goods into 18-wheelers. The pay was $19.40 an hour, which was decent for the area. The warehouse was huge with long aisles and big freezer sections that stayed cold. I drove my old truck there each night, and the heater never worked great, so I was usually chilly before the shift even started. They paired me with this new loader named Quincy. He was a quiet guy in his late 40s who always wore the same green Carhartt beanie no matter the temperature. He didn't talk much at all, and that suited me fine. I could just focus on my tasks. The first few weeks went normal. He did his part loading, and I did mine. But then small stuff started. On his breaks, Quincy would show up in my section of the dock. He didn't say anything. He would just stand nearby and watch me scan the pallets. I figured maybe he was bored or new and didn't know better. I tried to ignore it and keep working. One night around 3 a.m. I went to my locker for my lunch. It had a combination lock on it. When I opened my lunchbox, there was a folded piece of paper inside. I read it, and it said, "You load the 48-footers wrong. I've been watching." Nothing else on the paper. This shit had me worried. How did he get into my locked locker? I didn't say anything to anyone about it at first. I just changed my lock combo that same night and tried to brush it off. A couple weeks later, I mentioned to my supervisor, Vance, that Quincy was giving me a strange vibe. Vance laughed it off and said the guy was harmless. Just awkward is all. "Don't worry about it, he does his work fine," Vance told me. I wanted to believe that. Then early February came. It was a cold night. One of my usual docks had a broken seal, so I switched routes without telling anyone. I was in the freezer section, aisle 7. -10 degrees in there. I was up on the cherry picker, about 14 feet high, holding a frozen pallet when the lights cut out completely. It went totally black. The emergency lights didn't kick in right away. I stood still up there in the dark. Then I heard slow footsteps on the concrete floor below. They came closer. After a minute, I heard Quincy say my name. Not yelling it, just saying it calm like he was standing right under me. I didn't answer. How could he know I was in that aisle? Nobody had that info but me. I lowered the cherry picker down as fast as it would go safe. It felt like it took too long. When it reached the bottom, the lights came back on after about 40 seconds. Quincy was already gone. The aisle was empty. I got out of that freezer quick and stayed close to other people the rest of the shift. The next morning, I went to HR and filed a formal complaint. They checked things out. They found Quincy had been clocking into the building on days he wasn't scheduled. Badge swipes going back 3 months. No one had flagged it before. He resigned before they could terminate him, and I never saw him again. I kept the job for a bit after that, but I was always looking around more. I remember one morning I got home, and my wife asked why I looked so worn out. I told her work was just busy. I didn't want to worry her with the full story. I had forgotten to take the trash out before my shift, so the kitchen smelled bad when I walked in. Little things like that stuck with me that week. But I still think about how Quincy had access to the whole building alone in the middle of the night for months. What was he doing those times when no one else was around? I eventually left for another job in Memphis. The pay wasn't quite as good, but I felt better. Even now on quiet nights, I wonder if he moved on to somewhere else, or if he is still out there watching someone new. It makes you think twice about the people you work with. Most scary things don't happen in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. Sometimes the scariest thing sits 2 desks away from you, smiling at the morning donuts, remembering your coffee order. I worked at a dental office in Chandler, Arizona, and what I found out about one of my coworkers still bothers me more than I know how to explain. And the worst part? She had absolutely no clue. I'd been a dental assistant for a few years before I landed this job. The practice was on Ray Road, small place, quiet neighborhood, the kind of office where you park next to the same car every single morning. 2 dentists, 4 assistants including me, an office manager named Priscilla, and the billing coordinator, a guy named Thaddeus. Thaddeus was maybe 40, always had a coffee thermos, always said good morning first. He knew everyone's schedule better than they did. At the time, I thought that was just him being organized. I didn't think much of it. The newer assistant, her name was Solène. She'd only been there maybe 3 months. Was quiet, kept to herself, did great work. Thaddeus started hanging around near her station more than made sense. I noticed it but didn't say anything. You know how it is. You think maybe you're reading into it. Maybe he's just being friendly. I convinced myself of that for a while. Then the comments started. Little things. That color looks good on you. Standing maybe 6 inches too close during a conversation and not moving when she stepped back. One time I saw her laugh at something he said and it looked completely forced, like she was just trying to get through the interaction. I still didn't say anything. I feel bad about that now. The moment everything changed was a Tuesday afternoon. I was restocking the sterilization room, just grabbing gauze and stuff. Nothing exciting, and Thaddeus was in the hallway right outside, on his phone. He wasn't talking loud, but the walls there are thin. I heard him say something like she's there Tuesdays, Thursdays, and alternating Fridays. I stopped moving. He kept going, calm as anything, like he was reading directions off his phone. An address. What sounded like a home address, somewhere in Gilbert. Then he said something about a parking lot. Then he hung up. I stood in that room for probably 2 full minutes, not moving. My cat had knocked over a plant that morning, and I remember thinking about that for absolutely no reason. Weird how your brain does that. That night I went home and sat on my couch and just stared at the wall. My roommate asked if I wanted food, and I said yeah, but then didn't eat it. I kept replaying what I heard. Part of me wanted it to have a normal explanation. Maybe he was talking about someone else. Maybe it was nothing. But I knew. The next morning I went in early. I pulled up our practice management software under the excuse of checking a patient file. The system we used had both patient and staff records in it, same login, and the access permissions were basically non-existent. I checked the access log for Solène's employee profile. Thaddeus had opened it 11 times in 6 weeks. Her home address, her personal cell number, her emergency contact, all of it. He had 0 professional reason to ever be in her file. None. I took screenshots. My hands were shaking a little, and I kept thinking someone was going to walk in. Nobody did. I forwarded everything to myself, logged out, and walked straight to the senior dentist's office. She read through it quietly, then picked up her phone and called their attorney. Didn't even wait until after lunch. The next morning, Thaddeus came in, got about halfway to his desk, and was walked out by the office manager and the dentist. He didn't make a scene. That almost made it worse somehow. He was so calm. just nodded and left. Then came the part I think about the most. We sat Selene down that Thursday and told her everything. Told her what I heard, what I found, what we believed he'd been doing, and she just went completely still. She asked us to repeat the part about her address. We did. Her face didn't do anything dramatic. She didn't cry right away. She just said, "So someone else has it now." Yeah. We didn't know who he called. We reported it. The police took a report. I don't know what happened after that, honestly. Selene transferred to another office not long after. I still drive past that building sometimes. Same parking lot, same little sign by the road. I think about how long it was happening before anyone noticed. I think about how normal he seemed. I think about how she came to work every day, not knowing any of it. That's the part that stays with you. The strange thing is how normal it all looked at first. It was just another hot summer at the Amazon warehouse on 80th Avenue in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The air inside felt thick and warm, and everybody moved like they were half asleep. I was only trying to get through my shift, scan my bins, and go home. I did not think one coworker could turn my life into a month I still remember too well. My name is Leora Venn, and I worked as a picker. The job was loud, boring, and dirty. You scan items, pull them, stack them, repeat. The kind of work that makes your mind drift. One woman on my floor was named Maricel Quill. She had been there years longer than me. At first, she was friendly. We ate lunch together sometimes and complained about the vending machine chewing up our bills. She laughed a lot, but it always felt a little forced. After a while, she began asking questions that did not fit. She wanted to know if I lived alone, if I had a boyfriend, if I drove or took the Route 2 bus, and what time I usually got home. I answered at first because I thought it was just small talk. Then I started feeling dumb for answering at all. Soon I started seeing her in the parking lot before my shift. I would pull in, and her gray Pontiac Aztek would already be there, parked near the side entrance. She would sit inside with the engine off and wave at me like we were close friends. Once I waved back because I did not want to be rude. The next day she smiled and said, "You always come in early." I never told her my schedule had changed that week. I started parking farther away. That did nothing. One morning I found a yellow sticky note on my windshield with my first name on it and a little smiley face. No message, just my name. I looked around the lot, but nobody seemed to care. A forklift beeped nearby and a truck door slammed, like normal. I tore the note up and threw it away. After that, I noticed her near my station more often. If I turned around fast, she was bent over a bin or checking her scanner. If I looked again, she was staring at me from the end of the aisle. Once I dropped a package, and when I stood up, she was right beside me. Too close. She asked, "You okay?" in a soft voice that made me feel worse for some reason. I told myself she was just odd, not dangerous. That was my fuck-up logic then. The real problem happened on a Wednesday in August. I had a stomach bug and called in sick. I spent half the night in the bathroom and the other half on my couch with a fan blowing warm air because my AC was acting up. There was a dirty plate in the sink, and I kept meaning to take out the trash. I was half watching some show on Peacock when somebody knocked on my door. It was Maricel. She was holding a clear Tupperware bowl of soup and smiling like this was a friendly surprise. I had no idea how she found my apartment. My building was off Lincoln Road, nowhere near the warehouse. I cracked the door and asked how she got there. She said I asked around. "You looked sick." I told her I was fine, which was a lie, and said I needed to rest. She looked past me into the apartment, slow and careful, like she was counting my things. Then she said, "You should lock your door better," and gave a tiny laugh, like that was a joke. I shut the door and stood there with my hand still on the knob. I was shaking so badly I sat on the floor. The next day I asked around. One coworker named Trevon said Maricel had asked where I lived because she wanted to drop off soup. Another girl, Nessa, said she only gave her my apartment complex name because she thought we were friends. Someone in receiving had given her the street name too. So 3 people, maybe more. None of them thought it was a big deal. I went to HR that week and switched shifts. They said they would handle it. Maybe they did. Maybe they did not. I never saw Maricel in the lot again, but I still think about that knock. Not because she brought soup, because she was calm, too calm, like she already knew she would find me. Even now, I check my peephole twice when someone knocks. I lock my windows every night, even in the heat. Sometimes I wonder how many people would help a stranger find you if that stranger smiled enough. That part bothered me most, because after that, every time I heard an Aztec engine outside, I looked up from my couch and felt stupid for being so jumpy again.